So, what is it about bodybuilding that you are so compelled to work within that arena?
Shit, man. In some ways, it's luck. It's sort of I think it's a self-selecting sport. Sort of what I mean by that is, you look at Olympic sprinters and Olympic endurance athletes. In some ways, once you reach that level, you were selected for because not only were you interested in either Olympic sprinting or endurance events, it's that your genetics, you had the propensity to develop the type of muscle fibers that would allow you to be good in that sport. Similarly, with natural bodybuilding, whether it be, something in my mind or something physically, I developed somewhat of a talent. Not saying that I have the best physique or even a good physique for bodybuilding, but the mixture of my ability to diet and or train in a very monotonous way for very long periods of times has sort of allowed me to be, decent enough at natural bodybuilding. And so you wanted to know what sort of draws me into that sport? Well, I'd say aside from just the natural propensity for it, I mean, it is a lifetime sort of iterative sport. You can continue to refine your process, and it allows you to get better in sort of multiple arenas, whether it be mental, physical, nutritional, and then it also opens you up to a community or multiple communities that that you can be around other people who enjoy what you enjoy and believe what you believe. Um, and it's a hard thing. I think doing hard things is something that I enjoy doing, something that I can, anything that I can get better at, I enjoy doing. And so bodybuilding is a way to do that. But also it's with my body, and the sort of fruits of your labor are very evident. Whether that be after a year or two of putting on some mass, once you cut down, you actually see the fruits of your labor. And then in terms of long-term benefits, man, just like, age-related muscle loss is one of the biggest sort of impacts on older individuals. And so I'm just like, God, man, why not fall in love with a sport that allows you to better your body and continue to hone your body in such a way that, one, you visually, dude, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's visually appealing, but also it's going to set you up for the long term. And then me being on the natty side of things, that's just, no performance enhancers or anything like that. I think it's a sort of a longevity cure, minus, the Brian Johnson stuff. So not really diving too much into supplementation or anything like that.
So, I think the hang up a lot of people have around bodybuilding, unless you are in that community, right? Which is it's a relatively small community relative to the fitness, whatever, the fitness arena in general. So, I think a lot of people look at not even professional bodybuilders, but just people who do bodybuilding as either they've got like either they're narcissists, right? They have some intensity level of body dysmorphia, right? Which I'm not saying that those things don't happen. Like you do have,
Not denying
body
it.
dysmorphia. Yeah, you do have people with body dysmorphia and who are narcissistic pricks and shit. But I think that the piece that a lot of people overlook when it comes to why getting getting in shape is worthwhile in whatever version of that is sustainable for you is the longevity piece. I remember when I was, because you and I came from the same psychology program. Um, I remember when I was a trainee and we went to, I don't remember if it was like a church or a nursing home or some shit full of old people, and it was full of them. And because at this point, grad school was a long fucking time ago for me. Everybody there was like 70 plus, and we went there to like teach them fitness routines and things. And you might think, so like for listeners, and they say, why the fuck would a psychologist teach you how to like exercise and get in shape? And it's like one piece that at least the way we are taught in our program is to be like is behavioral health, right? And a piece of being a behavioral health provider, which is basically a version of a psychologist, right? we don't just talk about depression and anxiety. We also talk about habit formation and how exercise can improve your mental capacity, but also just for longevity and quality of life, right? Um, Generally speaking, a psychologist isn't going to give you a workout regimen unless they have an additional specialization. But one thing that we will do is help you figure out how to incorporate working out into your day to day, right? So we're really focusing on the habit aspect rather than the specific exercises of do bicep curls or do fucking squats or some shit, right? Um, but when we went to this again old people facility, whatever the fuck it was, um, we would show them things like how can you do like an assisted squat, so like using a chair to like sit down and things like that, right? And like there was one time we literally had them use like canned peas to do bicep curls. One, because a lot of them they had no muscle mass because they hadn't exercised in 40 fucking years, if ever, but also because of like arthritis and shit, trying to have them hold like a thinner diameter like dumbbell or something
Mhm.
was very painful.
Hmm.
So like something like a can was easy for them to grip and it was super light. And that was really eye opening for me because I was like, I never want to be like this. I never want to be so fucking weak that a can of peas is considered a bicep curl, and that's the workout, right? I think a lot of people, when you're young, you don't think about this shit, right? And I watched this thing the other day talking about like aging and how it might have been like a Peter Attia. I think it might have been one of his things, but um, basically how I'm gonna completely butcher it, but basically your ability to react and almost like fast twitch shit of like if you start to fall or lose your balance, your ability to like quickly course correct, that diminishes as you get older. So one of the questions is like, why the fuck do old people fall so much? And it's like you as a younger person almost fall more often than you probably register, but your body can very quickly react, so you don't. But once that reaction time, that ability for your body to kick to kick into gear to compensate, once that starts to slow, it makes you more prone to falling. On top of the fact that your balance in general is shit because you haven't practiced your balance. You don't have the muscle tone, right? So can you talk to me about if I don't give a shit about having a six pack, why is working out worthwhile for me completely aside from aesthetics?
Completely aside from aesthetics, I mean, basically everything that you outlined, if you care about your long term longevity and ability to move and function in your environment, then a bodybuilding style of training is going to be very beneficial for you. Like, look, fuck the six pack, man. Like, one of the reasons that one should bodybuild is it's one of the safest styles of training when you compare it to things like powerlifting, crossfitting, anything like that. In bodybuilding, the movements are slower and more controlled. You go through a wider range of repetition ranges, which means that a wider range of weights is available to you. So anything within the 5 to 30 rep range is available. And if you're an older individual, that makes a can of peas something that you can get a bit of hypertrophy with, so it's safe. It has a wide range of repetitions and various loads that you can use. And just because it's labeled, a bodybuilding style of training, that just means it's focused on hypertrophy, focused on general strength and getting your muscles a little bit bigger so that you can function. Train in a bodybuilding style if you want to function in your environment better and you want an adaptable way to train, because it's not like with just general weightlifting. We're not going to be doing, you can do cleans, you can do clean and presses and things like that, but you're not limited to needing a barbell if you want to train in a bodybuilding style way. You can train like a bodybuilder with your body weight. You just have to find a way in your environment to give your muscles the appropriate stimulus. And if you've never trained before, it's not that much stimulus. So a bodybuilding style of training is going to be a safe and effective way for you to, enhance your longevity in life and the way you move throughout your own environment.
One thing that so I used to work at a college recreation center. I have, lifted various, intensity and consistency is kind of varied because the majority of my like quote unquote training time at this point goes to jujitsu, right? Um, but like I have done a decent bit of lifting and been in the fitness industry in one way or another, off and on. One of the things that I consistently see that fucks people up is they think that soreness is a
Mm.
sign you had a good workout. Can you talk to that point and the and other misinformation or just fucked up beliefs that people have that can actually make it harder for them to be consistent?
Ooh, so soreness. I mean, this is a trap that I see early personal trainers fall into with their clients. They think that, ooh, if I make my client sore, then they're progressing, which is bullshit. I think soreness can be a proxy for gains or a good workout, but um, it is not necessary, nor is it sufficient to say that you had a good workout. And in some ways, it can be demotivating to individuals who decide, the New Year's Eve people who get into the gym for the first time, and let's say they hire a personal trainer, and let's say this personal trainer is not experienced. And so they're like, all right, I'm going to maybe not consciously go, I'm going to crush this person, but I want to show them that, they're going to have a really great workout. But inevitably, they give them volumes that a intermediate to advanced person would have, and they never see that person again because they crush them with soreness. I think we look at soreness, which is a piece. If you are never getting sore in your workouts, I think it's a fair question to go, am I training hard enough? Then I would break down and take a look at the volumes. Generally speaking, in a bodybuilding style of training, anywhere it can be less. It can be less than this, but for optimal hypertrophy in optimal nutrition scenarios, 10 to 20 sets per body part per week. If you have that body part on the front burner, you can have some body parts on the back burner. That's about the range that you want for a body part to grow. Can you get away with less? Absolutely. If you're a beginner, 2-3 sets. 2-3 sets per body part, and you can get away with that. Fuck, man, for a while. I'm sorry, can I cuss on this podcast? I didn't know
You've
if I could.
Heard me. You've already heard me. Yeah. This is my motherfucking podcast. Yes.
Yo, my guy, my man. Soreness, but I think we take that as an immediate indicator that something good happened, soreness, because we feel it. It's physiological. It's not something we have to track in a journal or anything like that. And it's acute feedback, whether that be almost immediately or the next day. We're like, I had a good workout. And so I think beginners and then even some intermediate trainees think that means I had a good workout, and so they sort of fall into that trap when in reality they should be looking, is my strength progressing? Now, whether that be, so overall strength versus like repetition strength, am I increasing in sets? And then you can get into things like, is my weight going up if I am trying to gain muscle mass, or am I losing body fat? Am I losing weight? So it's one of those things that you can look at as it's signal, but it's noisy. It's a really noisy signal that can be misconstrued and often is.
What are other things that tend to hold people back from developing a consistent fitness routine that you see? Because, like, I'll preface with there's a lot of bullshit out there about like, this is the only way to work out. This is the best way to work out. This is this is the mindset you should go into the gym with. There's this all or nothing thing. Either you get a complete 2-hour workout in or it's a fucking waste. Like, what are the things that actually hold people back from developing a good routine and a good relationship with fitness?
Oof, good relationship with fitness, good routine. Honestly, man, it's a number of things. Like, look, I'm in a little bubble. Like all the people on my social media, all the people I interact with, they're natural bodybuilders, man. They've got it down. It's their identity. Now, the easy answer would be, oh, you just have to develop an identity as a person who lifts. And that's true in some parts, but I think something that I am looking at in bodybuilding is, what is the context in which we are bodybuilding? What are the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that sort of limit our ability to get into the gym? And then what are the other contextual factors? Like, we're both psychologists, right? What are the biopsychosocial factors? And so for me, I think the social factors have become a lot more important in recent years in terms of how I manage to get into the gym. So I think a lot of people, number one, yes, they don't They don't train consistently enough that it eventually becomes part of their identity. They don't find a community within there, so they don't turn whatever their fitness is into a community. Some people love CrossFit. I would argue it's not just for the training; it's for the community. Similar to Orange Theory Fitness. Oh, look, there are people training at the same time, doing the same thing. They found a community. And then for individuals like myself, the bodybuilding community and things like that. So I think some of the most successful people, number one, yes, do find a community of individuals who will reinforce coming to the gym, coming at the same time, and doing that. Number two, I think a lot of individuals who don't make fitness sort of a sustainable habit for them, don't set, very, it sounds cliche to us at this point, but very specific goals, right? Set SMART goals, yada, 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 things like that. But they don't have a show 6 months from now that they are training for, whether that be bodybuilding or otherwise. They don't have a 5K, they don't have a 10K. So they don't set these goals, and they don't see if however their training is something that they would like to continue for a long period of time. So goal setting, finding a community, and honestly just making it a non-negotiable in your life. And sort of the way that I live that in my life is not bodybuilding, or this way that I train, whatever it is, substitute bodybuilding for whatever way you want to fucking train. Bodybuilding for me is a non-negotiable at this point in my life, and I live that by getting up at 3:30 in the morning, having my coffee, so that I can train in my basement, so that I can get it done before my boys wake up, and I can get any sort of other creative things done, so that I can have time for them. So I have built bodybuilding into my life. I set very specific goals for myself, and I found a community. Now, are those all the things that are going to keep somebody accountable? No, but I think they're big fucking pieces. Find a community, set specific goals, and if it's a priority, make it a priority in your life to do every day. Make it non-negotiable. You don't bodybuild. You are a bodybuilder. And that's what I am.
Identity-based habits and goals and things.
Eventually for some. You take the James Clear route: habits, then systems, then identity. Whatever. Start with habits. Absolutely. Build systems into your life. Set specific times throughout the week, and then find the community, and then eventually, after years of training, the identity is going to come.
Well, I really like that identity piece because, James Clear talks about habits, but Seth Godin is a marketer, and one of the things that Seth Godin talks about is people like us do things like this. And one of his kind of concepts around marketing is like creating that in group, right? Of like, this is for people who like X, Y, or Z, right? Our product, our service, our community, whatever. People like us do things like this. And, that applies to something like bodybuilding or fitness or jujitsu, or if you're a writer, right? Writers write, period, right? People like us do things like this. Whatever this identity you want to develop, the more you begin to adopt that identity and see it as what is it, like a noun, not a verb, right? Like, I am a writer, therefore I write. Not I want to write. I am a writer, therefore I write. I am, a whatever term you want to put to, a fitness enthusiast. I am a CrossFitter. I am a bodybuilder. I am a whatever. Therefore, people like me do things like this, right? I think a lot of people just overcomplicate fitness because one, a lot of damage has been unintentionally done by like 20-year-old dudes, because it's like, never, not ever should you listen to a 20-year-old single guy with a six pack, because that motherfucker, very, very, very few of them have earned it. One, some of them may, but it's like, you're 20, you got low body fat, you got fuck all responsibilities or obligations, you got genetics, you got age, you got metabolism, you got hormones, like you got all the things. You should motherfucking look like that. I I don't give a shit of what the fuck the 20-year-olds are doing. I'm asking, what the fuck is the 80-year-old doing? Because that motherfucker has figured it out. Because and again, like, not even like the 80-year-old bodybuilder necessarily, where they're fucking yoked, but just like, this dude can still do pull-ups. Or like, dude, one of my favorite things, which I try to limit like Instagram and shit because it's just mostly brain rot shit. But like, one of my favorite things to see is an old fucking lady just like deadlifting or squatting like multiple fucking plates, right? Like I love it so much because I'm like, this old bitch could lift me. And it's like, that's what you want. Like, cause like growing up, the old people I saw were fucking frail. They couldn't do anything. They were all like they were skinny fat. They had been skinny fat their entire lives, right? Meaning, for people who don't know the term, meaning they were relatively thin, but they didn't have any muscle tone. So they were fat in that their body tissue had a low like muscle density, but they were thinner. So they're skinny fat. A lot of people live their whole lives skinny fat, and then or fat, but then they get to the end of life and they're fucking old, they're frail, they have low bone density, low muscle mass, shitty balance, they can't do anything. And like that's when you get to the point of like, if you're old, like you can't even lift your grandkids. You can't go up and down stairs. That's how you hear sometimes people getting stuck on the fucking toilet. And I'm like, I never want to not be able to do a fucking squat or some shit so I can get my ass off the fucking toilet, right? It's shit like that people don't think about when you're younger, like, oh, I can get up and down just fine. It's like, okay, but think about how this trajectory is going to go, right? Versus saying, how do I want to look today or even in a year or two? How do I want my day-to-day existence to be decades from now? Okay, cool. What do I need to do today to set that person up for success? And that's a piece a lot of people don't think about. And a big, simple but not easy approach is, what is the identity I want to develop? Because that focuses you a lot. Like I so there is a term for people who do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's fucking stupid, so I don't use it. It's like jujitero or some shit. It's not a
Yeah,
prominent term. Like judo, you're called a judoka.
judo,
That's
right? That's
a
dope.
more
That's all right.
yeah, judoka, like that's fine, right? Like that's a much more prominent term. People have tried to make one for jujitsu, and it's currently jujitero or jujitsu. Some fucking, it's stupid as fuck. I don't
That
want to
sounds
do it.
like a Naruto, like.
Yeah, I'm a jujitero. Like,
It's like,
kaboosh. No, absolutely fucking not. I do jujitsu. But I identify as a member of that community. I identify as a martial artist. I can't not go to the gym to train, right? It creates cognitive dissonance when I hold an identity, but then I don't engage in the habits or the behaviors that align with that identity. And I
mm.
think that's kind of a piece of what you're talking about too. Um, but one thing I want to highlight for you, because like I'll talk about a couple things like in well, at this point I will have talked about some shit in the intro to like introduce you to things, but for context for people, your wife has
Mm.
a full-time job, okay? Because
That she
because
does.
I sometimes dudes get backlash with like, yeah, bro, like I woke up at like fucking 4:30 because Jocko, what time is it? Or Goggins, what? And I love Jocko and Goggins, right? I no way talking shit about them, but like, but I am talking about shit about the people who follow them blindly and like try to bro it out, right? It's like I woke up at 4:30 or 3:30, and then I get my workout in, and then I pat my kids on the head, and then I send them off to school, and then I do all this and I do this. Like, but what is going on behind the scenes is your partner is a full-time stay-at-home parent, person, whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that is commonly the rebuttal I hear from people is like, yeah, but the fact that there's a full-time stay-at-home partner or parent at the
Mm.
house, that makes all this easier for you. And it's like, no, no, no. In your situation, you both have full-time fucking jobs, two kids, right? You're also doing the creator thing because you got the YouTube channel, you write, you do all this other shit, and you're doing the bodybuilding, like in-person stuff, right? And you're and full-time as like a professor is different than full-time other jobs, because like you're lesson planning, you're teaching, you're grading shit, but then you're also supervising because you're a clinical psychologist, meaning your work day work week is fucked compared to like a quote unquote normal job. Yet you still find a way to not find time to work out, you protect time to work out and take care of your health and things, right? You talked about you kind of touched on sacrifice. How do you think about sacrifice when it comes to all of the things you have to do and all of the things you want to do?
Ooh, what a big fucking question, man. Jesus. All right. Sacrifice. You're right. Both me and my wife do work full time. Fortunately, part of the reason being a professor is if I want to, I can have my summers, and we are now into the summer months, and I have my summers, and I'll have my summers with my boys. Sort of this long term view. That's beside the point. So, I think I've come to understand that interests and things that you want to say yes to as you progress in life, they multiply, and your time divides. So you're gonna have to pick what you want to be shit at. Um, the more things you say yes to. So the way that I choose what I'm going to be shit at, essentially, is I zoom out. And I think this is what people have an inability to do, like what's important, knowing your values. I zoom out by taking this sort of lineage level perspective on my life. My life isn't just about me. It is a progression from my grandfather to my dad and their relationship, and what my dad inherited from that relationship, whether it be genetically or relationship wise, and then my father to myself and the things I did and did not inherit, and then the things that I will be passing down to my boys and what they're going to inherit from me, and then eventually, hopefully, my grandchildren. And I look at all those things, and that helps me make the acute decisions, because whatever I decide now is framed in a way that if this progresses me in a direction that I get more time with my boys and my future grandchildren and more freedom, then it is a yes now, even at the cost of sleep. Because, like, look, yeah, 3:30 sounds great. Jocko Bros. I'm not a Jocko bro. Like, I like Jocko. I do. I really do. But I don't get up 3:30 because, fuck, Jocko said, right? Whatever. I mean, I think that's good enough for most people. That's fine. Jocko said. I get up at 3:30, and it's a trade-off. Honestly, like, it's an unhealthy thing that I do. I'll get real. Like, it's an unhealthy thing that I do because I probably get suboptimal amounts of sleep. Now, I think there has been some research currently that shows that if you consistently go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, that's becoming infinitely more important than just the total amount of hours. And so I do that. So I do consistently get to bed around 8:30 and then get up at 3:30. So that's still around 7-ish hours, and it's the same time every night. So great. But I am trading off on total hours, and I am trading off on things that my wife says she understands, but I'm trading off on time with her for all the yes things, in the hope that my plan for the future allows for more freedom for both of us. So the way that I choose my sacrifices now, my acute sacrifices, is by zooming out, looking at my life through this lineage lens, what I want to pass on and what I demand of myself when I'm in my 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's sort of how I choose my sacrifices. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah. It's, for me, man, life is about sacrifice. You can't not make a sacrifice, right? So, like, for example, you can either sacrifice a night sitting on the couch in order to go work out, or you are sacrificing your future health to sit on the couch and do nothing tonight. And there's nothing wrong with rest, right? You obviously you need to rest, but you make the sacrifice either way. Either you sacrifice 3 extra hours of Netflix to read a book or to take a walk, or the opposite, right? Many things we do are mutually exclusive, right? Saying yes to one thing naturally means saying no to 1,000 others, because you can only do effectively one thing at a given time. You can only commit to one thing at a time for that specific time block, right? Versus I'm a big fan of, like, defaulting to no so that I can be open to saying yes to the few things that matter, right? Um, because life is about sacrifice. So really getting clear on what sacrifice is worth it to me. So what you're saying is it is worth the sacrifice of maybe getting a little less sleep, but making sure you're keeping the same sleep schedule. So hopefully your brain can reasonably adapt and kind of condense, sleep cycle shit. Um, in order to have more time with your kids, to be the best father you can be, to be the best version of yourself you can be for them, right? Because, kids pay more attention to what you do, not what you say. Too many parents think, well, I'll just correct my own issues by telling my kids to do differently. It's like that, it doesn't work the way you would want it to. Um, So you're making that sacrifice, right? And you said you wake up at like 3:30, but the big piece was like, yeah, but I go to sleep at 8 or 8:30. Like, this is the thing that fucks a lot of people. Like, I want to stay up till midnight and also do the Jocko bro thing. And it's like, you don't know what time Jocko goes to sleep. Also, like, there's also that. Like, the motherfuckers waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning, either they're fucking zombies and they get through the day with a series of just fucking IV dripped caffeine and nicotine, because nicotine's back in fucking vogue now.
Vogue, man.
Because it went from cigarettes to vapes to now fucking dip and snuff and zine and whatever the fuck it is.
Pouches, whatever.
Pouches, whatever the fuck the trademark term for these fucking pouches. Oh, it's safer, bro. It's good, bro. Nicotine's actually fine. It's all the other shit. I'm like, give it 3 years and then everything's going to be cancer again.
Just like eggs. Just
oh my God, dude. I'm in Austin, Texas. I fucking understand the egg thing. Eggs and beef, and everybody's on fucking TRT and shit, carnivore diet. Anyway. It's this idea of sacrifice, of either you wake up at the 3 or 3:30 and you're a zombie and you have to live off of stimulants, or you sacrifice staying up and fucking off at night and go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock. Like, that's the piece. Like, people get so focused on what time should I wake up to be productive, they never ask what time should I go to sleep to be productive. And that's the thing, man, is like people focus on the wrong piece. They focus on it's fancy, it's performative to take a picture of my watch or my clock and say, look at what time I woke up. And it's like, not one person is like, good night, everybody.
7:59.
Nobody's doing that, right? And it's like, because that makes it not seem glamorous. It's glamorous to wake up early. It's performative because it's like, look how disciplined I am. Look how awesome I am. All you fucking plebes are sleeping until 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever. I was up at 3 o'clock. It's performative. Showing a picture of your fucking bedside clock at 8 p.m. or 7:59, that's not performative. But that's the real work. That's the real discipline that kicks in, because it's like, it's easy to just keep staying up. And this is my thing, man, with we're kind of starting this episode talking all about like fitness and bodybuilding and habits and shit, because I think that a lot of people want to live a better life. And one component of that is their health, is their habits. But there's so much misinformation and so many misconceptions about this is what it means to live well on a physical level, that also influences your mental level and shit. But also, here are the things that actually work to get you there. You're focusing on the wrong things, because it's also, to a degree, like diet stuff, right? Generally speaking, a quote unquote whole foods diet is usually going to be the best thing, right? Minimize processed shit, basically nothing in a box outside of the store, right? Like fruits, veggies, meat, shit like that. Things that are minimally packaged, single ingredient. Not to demonize things with more ingredients, but that is just a very simple heuristic when you're trying to work on things, right? Even like carnivore or keto or some of these other things, or old school veganism, because current vegans are just they're just fat or skinny. They're fat or skinny fat. They're not fucking healthy anymore because of all the processed shit. But like the core component of a lot of, and you can speak to this better than I can, but the core component of most quote unquote diets that are effective generally come down to, you are eating one in a way that is hopefully sustainable for you, whatever that looks like, but also generally fewer quote unquote cleaner, whatever that word means, ingredients. And then a layer below that generally has to do with calories in, calories out. I know there are modulating factors to that, like with hormones and some other things. So what is your take on what it actually takes to find a quote unquote diet that works for you? Prefaced with, the actual definition of a diet is what you do eat, not what you don't eat. Like anytime we talk about, oh, the cheetah's diet is fucking antelope, nobody says the cheetah's diet is no grains. Like, that's the thing that fucks people up. They're like, oh, I'm on a diet. I can't eat that. Nobody says I'm on a diet, therefore I eat all of these things.
Diet sustainability has something that has been on my mind a lot. And honestly, I think it comes down to individual differences and how many fucking variables do you want to keep track of, man? I think the popularity of keto, carnivore, veganism, all that is you get to keep track of fewer variables. If you are a person who cannot or chooses not to keep track of a lot of variables, defaulting to a diet that tells you not this, not this, not this, not this, this, and this, and that's all you get, is such an easy way to sustain either maintenance or a calorie deficit. And let's be real here, most people, when they think or talk about body composition or changing of their diets, it's to lose weight. That's a majority of it. Not many people are out there going, I mean, there are quite a few people just like, oh, I just want to put on a ton of muscle, and that's great. But a lot of people are thinking weight loss now. You've got the weight loss drugs, things like that. You've got some things, coming up that are going to help with muscle mass, but most people are thinking calorie deficit. So I think diet sustainability starts with how many variables can you realistically keep track of, and does that fit into the broader context of your life? So one of the trade-offs, let's bring this again, it's all back to the trade-offs, man. Like for me, I have tracked calories for so long, it's automatized. I just see the matrix, man. It's all beautiful flowing numbers to me. And I can eyeball portions. And so even when I don't have my phone or anything like that, I generally can ballpark within probably 100-ish calories what's in front of me and roughly the macronutrient distribution, because I've been doing this for almost 20 years. And that's the type of detail that I am into. For some, they don't want to do that. For some, it's portion control. Okay, all right, that's dope. You want to get a couple palmful serving sizes of meat. You want to get a fistful serving size of veggies and maybe a cupful of grains and a thumb of fat. And you want to go sort of the hand model route of eating and proportion that out to 3 or 4 meals. That might be the amount of variables someone wants to get into. Or back to what I was saying, keto, vegan, whatever. So how many variables are you willing to track? That's number one. What does your personality sort of allow you to do? And then number two, how does it fit in your lifestyle? Like I was saying, so here's the trade-off that, this is a unglamorous and probably something that I could improve on myself is my wife and I'd say over the course of 365 days in a year, eat separately 310 days. That's my trade-off. We have our anniversaries. We have when we go on vacations. We have some special occasions. But part of what I want in life is a certain body composition, certain adaptations, certain amount of proteins, carbs, and fats. And that level of specificity is a trade-off on my relationship. And in any normal relationship, it would be a trade-off too. So I trade off that time with my wife, and her and I have had extensive conversations. So part of me choosing or maintaining this diet has been ongoing conversations with my wife about what I will and will not do, being able to set those boundaries, being willing to enforce those boundaries, and just being consistent with that. The difficult thing for her is that, yes, I have my boundaries, but she now has to explain those boundaries to members of her family. And I have no problems doing that. I can just be straight-faced. No, thank you. Oh, but no, thank you. And I try to come about it in a very kind and genuine way, but, I know what I'm willing, I know what I'm saying. The default's no, just like you said. My default answer is no. So as far as diet sustainability, are you willing to set your boundaries? How many variables are you willing to keep track of? And yeah, and that's mostly it. And what are you willing to say no to?
Hey, real quick. If you want even more psychological insights to transform your business, your life, and yourself, check out the Creator Alchemy newsletter. New issues go out regularly, and it's completely free to join. Go to creatoralchemy.com now, and as a thank you for subscribing, you'll unlock the Psychology of Success Masterclass, which is designed to help you build the foundations you need to succeed in life and business. It's based on strategies and insights I've developed over the years that have already helped countless creators all over the world do just that. So I'd love to send it to you too. Just go to creatoralchemy.com to get the newsletter and unlock the first lesson. All right, now back to the show. You're like, so for me, so like medically, I can't eat gluten in any capacity, any form. So that is naturally a thing. Like one, it's really hard for me to go out to eat because cross contamination is a huge issue. I don't eat generally what other people cook me because it's something as simple as, oh, you put soy sauce in this thing. Most soy sauces have fermented wheat, which has gluten, but you would never think that, right? Or you put a seasoning mix in with the beef because you're like, oh no, it's carnivore. Oh, it's animal based. It's fine. It's like actually you put some bullshit in there. Oh, we put a little bit of breadcrumbs. That's going to fuck me up for 5 days, right? Because animal based people will do like sourdoughs and shit. I'm like, I can't have that at all. Um, One thing that worked for me, and I was on it rigidly for like 7 months, and then we kind of backed off. Um, was like animal based, like more carnivore. So meat, fruit, and like honey slash agave, right? No grains, honestly, no vegetables. And the reason for that was I was like, look, like, because now I'm like 36. I'm like, I at this point in my life am trying to eat in a way that makes my body feel good. I don't give a fuck what the food pyramid, which is a bunch of lobbying that went into that. It's a whole separate fucking conversation, or whatever the fuck people say I should eat. Maybe vegetables are healthy. My issue is when I eat broccoli, though I fucking love broccoli, you could strap a tuba to my ass and I could just sing, I could play you a symphony, right? I don't like having an upset tummy. So, as much as I love broccoli, I don't eat it nearly as much as I would like because it makes my tummy hurt. Um, but when I eat meat, especially like beef, in various forms and all the fruits I want, I felt really good overall. I didn't have any like reactions because again, like even rice or oats, you can have cross contamination issues with gluten and things for various reasons because of how they're processed and shit like that. Even like oats, if oats are grown in a field near a field of wheat, the wind can just blow fucking gluten particles onto the gates. It's a whole fucking issue. That was a very sustainable way for me. Um, the issue was that I went 7 months without any sort of quote unquote celebratory thing. And 7 months in was our anniversary. So we're like, okay, well, we'll get a little bit. And my fat ass, straight up, willpower isn't a thing. I'm like, if there's Oreos, because they have gluten free Oreos now. If there are Oreos in the house, I'm just going to fucking eat them. Fuck willpower. I just won't keep Oreos in the house. That is so much easier for me, right? And that was my thing of like, that way of eating was really, really good for me personally. And then we generally still stick to it, but we do add occasionally like some grains or like root vegetables and things now. Um, but that is a way of eating that works for me. The counter argument is, okay, Corey, but there's more saturated fats in beef now. You're eating a higher fat content diet. What if that leads to you high cholesterol, heart disease? I'm like, look, it could. I'm in no way saying it couldn't or won't or whatever. What I am saying is I'm going to die one day regardless. The cleanest eating motherfucker in the world still died. My thing is how I'm eating helping me feel good and feel healthy on a day-to-day basis overall? Because no matter how you eat, the way you eat will in some way contribute to your death unless you get hit by a fucking car or something else. Thoughts on that?
You know what you're optimizing for. You're optimizing for, it sounds like, a bit of mental clarity, and you're optimizing for sort of gastric comfort. And I assume this style of eating also contributes to, does it contribute in some way to your performance as a, God, I refuse to say that, BJJ?
Yeah, yeah, big. I recover faster. And I can feel like so the last week or two we've had rice. We've incorporated rice because we want to do like sushi bowls and shit. I now wake up hungry and a little lethargic. And I attribute that specifically to the rice. When I am just eating like ground beef and eggs and or like some other shit, my energy levels aren't high. Like I'm not like manic, but they're even. I don't wake up hungry. I don't wake up with like mental fog or lethargy. But as soon as I incorporate specifically a grain or any kind of like processed sugar, that is my existence. And then inflammation kicks in, everything else. The animal-based way, I don't have any inflammation. I recover so much faster. And it's a constraint that I don't have to think about. It's like, is this meat, fruit, or honey? Yes or no? If yes, fuck, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter portions, doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter how much you snack, how many fucking oranges or bananas or apples you have, doesn't matter. I can have as much as I want because it naturally is a higher like satiety
Hmm.
diet for me
Hmm.
because a lot of fruit has fiber and meat has a bunch of protein and fat. Because at one point we calculated it because we were like full. We calculated it and we both were having maybe 1,100 calories a day.
Jesus.
Dude, it that
Fuck,
and that
man.
was dude, and that was my thing. I was like, there's no fucking way. I was like, I am full throughout the day. I have energy. I feel good. I'm not hungry. And then we actually calculated it out because we were having like a pound of ground beef, 8 eggs a day, whatever the fuck amounts of fruit and shit. And it was just like anytime you're hungry, eat. But it just turned into like the actual calories were like 1,100 a day. But if I tried to replicate an 1,100 calorie diet with a quote unquote normal way of eating, I would be starving and so tired.
Satiety's a real thing, man. Shit, man. Yeah. No, I mean you locked in on the variables. Like you're like, is it meat, fruit, or honey? Right? Is it meat, fruit, or honey? And those are the variables that work for you. You can eat as much as you want, the least amount of constraints possible, and you're eating things that keep you full. And it's a high protein diet almost by default because meat, fruit, anything like that, dude. I mean, if it is sustainable for you, then fucking God bless you. Keep going. And if it allows you to fuel what you're doing in life, God bless you. Go for it. Shit. And I think the other important thing you touched on there is environmental constraints. How fucking important is that? Why default to willpower when you can just control your environment? Why? Why would you do that? Why would I keep fucking Oreo ice cream sandwiches in my freezer when I could just not have them there? And I think that's another piece that goes back to why people aren't able to sustain the type of dieting that they're doing. And it's not even their fault, man. It's their wife, it's their kids. They have foods that they need to have. I mean, you're not going to force your children exactly to eat like you. Yes, you're going to reinforce, healthy eating standards, yada, 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 whatever. But like if you want to engage in a particular style of dieting, the other individuals in your home are probably going to eat a different way than you. You want major changes. There's a good chance that not everybody in your house is going to want that change. So I think finding a way, especially if you're a person who lives alone and you just want to make some changes in your life, don't default to willpower. Default to controlling your environment. If you know you have issues with Oreos or bread or this or that, keep that shit out of your house. And that is a much easier way to sustain whatever type of dieting you're doing until you reach that sort of identity level where now I can have all this kiddie shit in my house and it doesn't really matter. I now eat for the adaptations that I want, and also because I am ingrained in a community and I have fucking multiple tentacles that are sort of keeping me accountable. YouTube, the research that I'm going to be doing, the individuals, the things that I'm creating. Like I'm locked in. Like I can't not default to the way that I need to eat for those things.
When you got to take all those YouTube thumbnail pictures of all your fucking chiseled abs and pecs and everything.
When do I got to take those?
No, I'm saying you have to keep taking those.
Oh yeah, you got to keep
like,
hey man, it is what it is. It is what it is, man. And then and that's something that I struggle with too. It's just like, yeah, you got to, especially with like YouTube. So you got thumbnail title hook, right? I mean, what fucking gets clicks? So those pictures, I have a love-hate relationship with those pictures. You should not be at the lowest of body fat percentages year round. Some individuals genetically, sure, you can be predisposed to having single-digit body fat percentages, but for most people, that image that is portrayed on YouTube and social media isn't fucking sustainable. Like, even getting there can be detrimental to what it is that you're doing, because most people don't have a recovery or reverse out strategy for like, all right, I'm fucking at single digit body fat percentages now. I feel like complete trash. Now I'm going to go House of Denny's or something like that. So love-hate relationship with those, the things that, get the clicks. But to answer your question, yes, you got to keep a certain level of body fat percentage for those. But fortunately, I can just reuse quite a few of those pictures, so it's not a year-round thing for me. I'm in a bit of a small cut right now until towards the end of July, and then I'm gonna recover or reverse out for the next 2 years until I step on stage again when I will be in my 40s and be able to compete in the Masters division. And so that's the plan. That's the 2-year roadmap out of this July.
You are the both buffest, but also like most fit psychologist I know by far, right?
Appreciate it.
So like anytime like I see like your thumbnails and shit, I never think like, oh, this like narcissistic prick. I'm like, good for this motherfucker. Because like it's proof. It's like, look, I am an authority on the topics I talk about. Virtually no one else can specifically touch the Venn diagram overlap of like fitness, specifically bodybuilding, but also psychology, right? Because like you are what is it, like a bodybuilding psychologist, a psychologist bodybuilder, like depending on which way you want to flip it. But like
Mm-hmm.
that's a very, very small percentage if you even have anybody else who hits that Venn diagram.
Super niche.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, yeah, you could have, I don't know if you can grow facial hair or not, but
Sad to say that this is about it. This is a few years in the making right here, baby. That's,
so them Filipino genes are fucking you up.
They are. However, I will say, my wife likes that I keep it pretty hairless year round. Like it ain't no shaving here, homie. Like you see these arms, that ain't me shaving shit. Like, I got nothing.
But that's the thing is like, unless you try to like grow out some Freud looking shit to like signal you're a psychologist, right? Like your physique is your business card or your authority proof, right? So that's why like I get that it can be cringy, but it's also like it's really good social proof. But actually, so okay, so we've talked about all the bodybuilding shit, but another thing, a couple of the things I really want to talk to you about, and we'll see how many we get through for this first episode. You and I originally were going to start our own podcast years ago, right? And it still haunts me that we couldn't make it work out. But
same friend.
But one that kind of is what initiated my desire to have a podcast period one day. So like ours kind of, we recorded a handful of episodes, kind of fell through one for one reason or another. I started a different podcast with 2 other coaches that had like however many, couple dozen episodes. And then we decided to spin that down. And then now this is, my solo one. What you and I were originally going to talk about was we were going to be exploring basically modern men and masculinity issues and like the psychology of masculinity and shit. Because one, it's something that neither of us really explore publicly a whole lot. Like I don't really talk about men and masculinity issues a whole lot, like in my own content, mostly because I am more focused on a different audience of like creators, entrepreneur types. And a subset of those is obviously men or people interested in men and masculinity issues. But one, a lot of the current rhetoric around in public, popular discourse around men and masculinity issues is largely right leaning. And that just isn't really, the orientation I have. But from an academic or quote unquote expert perspective, psychology, like psychologists, are really behind when it comes to modern men and masculinity issues. And that's really kind of the friction there is, um, like Jordan Peterson, depending on what era of him you came in with, either he was saying very reasonable things, very insightful things, or just fucking trans bashing, body shaming, whatever in the fuck far right fuckery was going on. But again, earlier Jordan Peterson, solid. And then I slowly had to like squint more and more and more to see what his point was until eventually I was like, you're just out of your fucking mind. Um, Maybe he's come around now. I know he was going through some personal things, and
Mm.
there's a thing called audience capture where basically you become a
Mm-hmm.
caricature of yourself because you give
Mm-hmm.
your audience more what you think they want. He definitely went down that route. I digress. I remember going to a conference on men and masculinity through like the APA, the American Psychological Association, the APA division for like men and masculinity shit. And the two guys who were teaching us about, masculinity shit, one they didn't cite a paper that was newer than like 30 years. They called themselves soy boys. And I'm like, that isn't really the people don't use that term like you think they do. Like I'm hearing this from you for the first time. But also the fact that you're calling yourself a soy boy probably means you're not the best like authority when it comes to men and masculinity issues. Um, they were basically fucking hippies, and um, they had no idea who Joe Rogan was. They had no idea who Jordan Peterson was. They had no idea who like Brett and Kate McKay were from Art of Manliness. Chris Williamson, or Jocko. They didn't know of the forerunners when it comes to modern men and masculinity content. Like current dudes, where they go to for guidance, they go there. Right. And I love most of those guys for sure. I've been on Chris's podcast, right? Um, but these guys had no idea what they were talking about. And like they were still citing like psychodynamic theories from like 35, 40 years ago. Like what? Well, it was horrific. And I'm like, and I was subscribed to the APA journal for like men and masculinity shit for a minute. And I never learned anything. Not because I'm all knowing, but because it would be like, oh, boys are struggling in school. But it would be like the whole journal would be like, Asian American boys are struggling in school. And then there's this brand new article, Hispanic boys are struggling in school. And it's like, motherfucker, we've known this. Everybody knows this. Like, but you're slicing it into just like little splitting hairs, but you're not actually saying like, here's what we can do about it. You're not actually talking about, okay, but in a modern context, what are people struggling with? So the experts straight up aren't fucking with it. So the only other place you can go is people without the expertise,
Mm.
but have the passion for men and
Mm.
masculinity stuff. That was basically going to be the premise of our show. Why do you think it is important for us to discuss modern men and masculinity issues? Us meaning you and me.
Oh, why should we do it? Oh, shit, man. Great question. Why should we, Corey and I, discuss modern men and masculinity issues? Well, I think it goes back to something that you said earlier, that Venn diagram. Like we are psychologists, and then also very fit, active individuals, and then also on top of that, we are both males, men interested in these subjects. I do not think people who are not interested in men and masculinity should be forced to think and or engage in this type of material, but we inherently, something inside of us, are interested in these subjects. Now, whether that be our upbringing or just general predispositions, there's something inside of us that cares about young men and what it means to be a man nowadays. I know for myself, I want to say I had a lot of guidance growing up to what a man was. And, with all respect to my father, rest his soul. Does he have a soul? Never mind. I only saw certain parts of masculinity, and I wish I had seen him in a more complete picture. I saw anger growing up as a solution for a lot of things. And as I sort of progressed in life, I realized that anger wasn't really a solution to anything. It was more signal that should be paid attention to, but I didn't really have the appropriate tools. And I think a lot of men sort of go through this. I think nowadays it's easier than ever to lose yourself in social media, in video games, in porn. And so men's default is to no longer get out of the house and to do and to seek and to find other men, to seek adventure, to seek novelty. It has turned into this thing where we are satiated by media, and there's less of that drive to figure out what it actually means to become a man, to do something to become a man. So I think for you and I, coming at it from the perspective of, yes, psychologists, but also individuals who live their values and have continued to live their values in some ways, I think it's important for us to talk about men and masculinity things, because although we might not be, right, far right, whatever, traditional, completely traditional, traditionally masculine men, I think we can bring a balanced perspective that, yes, we have this sort of somewhat left-leaning perspective in terms of, you should be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. But also we have some traditionally masculine things about us, like, I'm a fucking gym bro when I want to be. You roll jujitsu. And you eat carnivore adjacent, if not carnivore. Like, there are a lot of things that if people only looked at certain sections of our Venn diagram, they'd be like, right-wing Nazi sympathizer. Just fucking look at his beard. That one's hairless. Yeah, they would look at us and go, no, But no. I think there is also sort of parts of masculinity, I care about you a lot. Yeah. Right? Like, I don't, this is one of the things, I don't socialize much. I choose who I socialize with, and you are one of the people I fucks with, all the time to the degree that I can. And I care about you, and I get excited to see what you're doing and this continued progression that you have. And I want to support you in that. And I think that's a part of masculinity that is sort of missing. How do we care about each other as dudes and support each other in our own ventures, even if they are, whether they're adjacent or different things entirely, and we're missing that through this sort of sedation that our current environments are giving us. Really, this sort of evolutionarily mismatched environment where we would naturally group together on a shared mission and vision, but now you can just stay at home and do diddly dick.
Yeah, there's another term called normative male alexithymia, which is basically just undercase stoicism, or gray rocking, I guess some people call it. Normative meaning like it's within like a normal parameters, but it's just basically like an emotional stuntedness and a stunted emotional expression. And I definitely do that, right? Like, I don't get me wrong, like, I get excited, and I will be boisterous, not as much as I was when I was 20, but I still do that. But a piece of it is I'm rarely rather in a context where that part of my identity or those reactions are warranted, let alone socially condoned. So it's almost like, and I know there's a term for it, but I fucking blanking on it. Basically, like, when you're around old friends, you regress to that version of yourself when you're around those old friends. Um, so like when I go back to Huntington, when I go and hang out with people, it's not that I default or I regress back to that person so much as like, now this part of me is allowed to come out, right? And with a lot of guys, um, we're not really allowed to be guys a whole lot. And again, I'm definitely not right leaning, right? Like, if I had to figure out where the fuck I am on a spectrum, it's probably center left, or left of center left, whatever the fuck that is. But like, I have the gym, right? And yes, there are women. Yes, there are, we have people who are trans and like and all of that, right? But that is where I go, and I'm allowed to be rougher, to be more boisterous, to be whatever, right? Um we don't have, at least in the US, right? Like, we don't have like third places, right? Or
Hmm.
whatever they're
Hmm.
called. In other parts of the world, like, in Europe and things, like, they have more third places, right? Austin, Texas has some third places, but most of the third places are like, this is a co-working space. Be quiet, right? Like, you can't like have like any level of physicality or intimacy, right? Like, dude, a fucking just going having like a campfire with like a bunch of friends. Again, right now we're talking about men, so like a bunch of like dude friends. The depth of conversation you have at night over a fire, hard to fucking beat. I don't know what it is about nighttime and fires that makes you naturally pensive, but also open to being vulnerable. No idea what that. I would love to read fucking research on that shit, but like there is something in that very specific context where you're like, you know what? I'm going to open up and I'm
Hmm.
going to talk about really deep shit. Like, you'll talk about deeper shit there than damn near any therapy room. Like,
Real shit.
yes, like we've both done therapy.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
there's an art to it for sure, but it's like you just stick a motherfucker at night in front of a campfire. You don't have to build rapport. You don't have to like create a psychologically safe environment. It's just put that bitch in front of a fire. They will let it all out. But like, we don't have that. We don't have camaraderie. We don't have rites of passage. That's another big thing, right? Is like, how do you know when you're a man? Is it when you can grow facial hair? Is it when you have a kid, right? Exactly. Is it when you have a kid? Is it when you get a job? Is it when you turn 18? Is it when you get a house? Like, is it when you kill your first fucking buffalo? Like, what makes you a man? And it's like, like I talked about Brett McKay, like, there is an art of manliness, like theartofmanliness.com. There's not an art of womanliness or an art of femininity. Like, just straight up women don't have the same degree of an identity crisis as this generation of guys seems to have had, right? And one thing I do believe is part of it, and you and I have talked about it in other situations. I know Keelan, Dr. Hinton, we've all talked about it. Um, I'll have him on the show at some point, but um, it is this whole idea of like gender roles.
Hmm.
Regardless of your opinions of traditional gender roles, they served a function. And for generations, it's like this was the quote unquote woman's job, this was the guy's job. But at a certain point, women got trained differently. They were like, hey, you need to be self sufficient. Go get an education, be able to get a job and provide for yourself. And that's solid. There's nothing wrong with that. The issue that happened was women now were operating off of a different script, but guys were operating off of the same old script. So the guy was like, I've spent my entire life training for this role. My job is to provide and protect. But now I get into, a hetero relationship thinking this is my role. And the girl is like, nah, bro, like, I got a job. I'm educated. I got fucking mace. I
What do
do
I need you
jujitsu
for?
too. What the fuck do I need you for? And the guy's like, I don't fucking know. Like, I legitimately, I don't know what role I serve now because I thought this is what I was training for, and I have all this training, but there's not a job opening, and I don't know what the fuck to do with myself because I didn't learn to be adaptable. I didn't learn different scripts. Maybe I didn't learn, EQ skills. I don't know how to communicate effectively. I'm not good at emotional labeling. I don't really know what the fuck I feel right now. I don't know how to be vulnerable. I don't know how to be okay with the fact that maybe you make more money than me. Like, I don't I you want me to do dishes? Like, what the fuck? I don't how do I cook, right? And again, not say this is all guys, right? But I do think that the guys who struggle with the current version of relationships right now, it's one of the reasons is that they're just like, I don't know what my role is anymore. And there aren't, and this is why Rogan, Joe Rogan, Chris, Brett, like all these people, like that's why those people exist. Not why they exist. It's why they've gained so much prominence because they're like, hey, here's what I've figured out, or let me bring on other people to talk about this. Right. And yes, some of it is really good. Other times people have crackpots on, or like just again, some fucking far right bullshit. That happens. But fundamentally, it's because people are looking for guidance. There aren't many people helping that demographic who aren't trying to Andrew Tate it up.
Mm.
Like, I like my thing with like Jordan Peterson. There's some of his shit that I absolutely fucking loathe, and I think it is vitriolic. Some of his stuff, I'm like, you know what? That actually makes sense. That's a really good insight, pairing religion and philosophy and applying that to modern psychological shit. That's solid. Would I be down to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson at some point? Sure. We have mutual friends who they like and respect him. I'm like, okay, even though I've seen some of his shit that I don't like, I'm willing to defer judgment if you like him because I like and trust you. So I would be down to have that conversation. Andrew Tate is just a fucking cancer to society. Like, but he's a symptom, right?
Mm.
Like, I'd be willing to break bread with Jordan Peterson in certain circumstances. Andrew Tate is just like, nah, buddy. Like, you can just keep on fucking off,
I'd
right?
sit ringside. I'm not gonna lie. I mean,
Kickboxing, he might win. Jiu-jitsu, I'd probably win. But we see. But my thing is like, what the reason he works is because you have a generation of young dudes who are like, this role I've trained for isn't available anymore. Therefore, it must be women who are the reason. It's their fault. Well, this guy over here is telling me it's not my fault, that the system is rigged against me. That makes sense. That's why I feel the way I do. So let me just kind of blindly follow this guy who effectively is telling me to treat women like fucking property, and that, justifying my inceldom and black pill, red pill, whatever the fuck the pill is. We need the anti Andrew Tates, like people who are passionate about men and masculinity issues, who do offer legitimate guidance, not rigid dogma, but helping dudes figure out what kind of man do you want to be? What is a man to you? Right? Like you were talking earlier about, anger. I used to work for a juvenile detention facility, and I worked with the boys. So these kids were like 13 to 17 because once they turned 18, they aged out. Um, None of them could define what a man was because I asked them, I was like, you talk about you want to be a man. What is a man? Because a lot, honestly, like not all, but a lot of them, their goal in life was to run their pod in prison, not to go to college, not to get a job, not to have a family, to run their pod because that was all they knew, right? And we started talking about, what is a man, and a lot of it ended up being like a man physicality. He's
mhm.
strong, he can break things, he can fight, and I'm like, okay, how do you define an infant? They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, an infant can't control their emotions. An infant throws a tantrum. They break things. They yell. They scream. They throw. They punch. I was like, men don't. Men are in control of their emotions. Men protect people who need protecting. Men provide for the people they care about. And that was just a completely different schema than any of them really knew. And not because like, oh, they came from broken homes. Like some of them came from okay homes. Some of them were raised without dads and shit. Others just had toxic male role models. But that was the only version of a man they ever knew. They didn't know any other way. So there are two, now three people that I look up to when it comes to people who are the best definition of a man, a father, a husband, a son, whatever. There are three people. You are one of them. Um, Uh, a guy named Toby Emmons Holly. I had Toby on the show. His episode will be out before this one. Toby's got 7 kids. Is a CEO. Is also super fit. He's all on the Jocko train. Like Toby's a fucking legend. And then the third one is Chewy, Nick Albin, which I'll have Chewy on the show at some point because Chewy recently they've got a kid now. The three of you, the things you all have in common, one, to one degree or another, you study slash contemplate philosophy
Mhm.
in various, and I do lump psychology under the broader category of philosophy. I put psychology
Tempting.
under philosophy before I do science.
Mhm.
As a psychologist, that is how I categorize it. But
Same for me.
um, you all do that. You are all focused on family, but also your own physical health. You all do focus on being able to protect and provide, but not from the perspective of, I'm the man of the house, I'm the breadwinner. Woman, your job is to just stay in the kitchen. That's why women have small feet so they can stand closer to the stove. Like, you all aren't like that. You all are, to me, the epitome of what a true man is, right? Which is why I love all three of you. Um, but people listening don't know as much of your story as I do. One thing I would love for you to walk through, if you can, if you're willing, is your dad going to the Philippines, you coming back and living the life you feel that you're living on behalf of the other Filipino kids, into taking care of him in his final days, and how you see yourself and your relationship as a father with your sons now. Because this is a story and just insights that need to exist in the world.
Ooh, man. First, let me return that, brother. One of the few individuals that I think about when I think about what a man could and should be. You yourself lump yourself in there with me, Chewy, and your other friend. I cannot. And Toby, man. There are a few individuals I could probably count on one hand that I would lump in there, and I appreciate you lumping me in with those awesome individuals. So yeah, so I've told myself this story for a really long time. It goes back to that lineage level perspective, sort of this broader, sort of introspective. And let me just start with, I think on the road to becoming whatever a man is, you got to get introspective at some point, and you got to get curious about your inner experience. So there's that. Let me just put that to the side. But the story starts with a deep gratitude, and I don't know when that gratitude kicked in, but I realized that my life didn't have to turn out the way that it turned out. And in some ways, there are a whole bunch of multiverses where my life could have been a lot shittier. And so I've told myself, I can't really remember when the story formulated, but my dad was in the Navy, met my mom when he was in the Philippines. Yeah, had my brother, got married, left Philippines, came back to the States. At a certain point in my life, I realized that that story didn't have to go that way. So I started telling myself another story. 2 stories. So, yes, in that first story, left the Philippines, came to West Virginia, had all the opportunities that I've had afforded to me, good public education, the opportunity to work within a good business, my uncle's business, and then the further opportunity to eventually take care of my father and then also attend college, yada, yada, yada. The other story that I told myself was, Dad could have just left. He didn't have to take us from the Philippines to America. He didn't have to do any of that. A lot of men just left. A lot of men just had children and they just left them in the Philippines. That could have been my life. Once I realized that, I'm not just living sort of for myself. I'm living for this alternate version of me that would never have had any of these opportunities. And it's kind of funny when you think about the opportunity that I'm grateful for. A lot of people would have thought living your whole life in West Virginia, what opportunities are you going to freaking get there? But I've had all the opportunities. Jesus, man. Comparatively speaking, I completed, I was the first in my family to go to college, first in my family to get a doctorate, complete that, have a job, do all those things. And so this, we can call it a motivator if you want, but this underlying story that I've told myself sort of compels me in those darker moments to go, yeah, this doesn't feel good right now. However, things could have been, and probabilistically might have been worse than they are. So I don't know where that story came from. It became a reality whenever I realized it was something in the work, whenever I started thinking in probabilities, whenever I stopped thinking so black and white. And I think that's another skill that you develop on your road to manhood. It's not just, things aren't just either or proposition. There are gradations, and you have to start thinking in probabilities and gradations as opposed to yes, no, off, on, things like that. So there's that story. And I think after I adopted that story and it became part of my identity, I became a better man. And then so fast forward to the other part of your question. So with that story, my parents got divorced when I was a teenager, 13, 14. I'm sorry. No, I was 16 and my brother was around 14. So they get divorced. And obviously, we're the kids. This is sort of, one of your trad divorces, I guess. Kids go with mom, whatever that is. I didn't like that too much. After several months or even a year, I just started staying at dad's house, and eventually I moved in with dad. He still paid child support and everything like that. It's just I identified with him more. It's just the way it is. I identified with dad more. And, the years go by. We get to work together at the bakery. One of the greatest set of years of my life, not only to understand and develop the ability to be bored and then enthralled with your work, making thousands of donuts over and over and over again can be boring at first. But then when you lose yourself into that, you develop this sort of state of flow that you get from working out, from jujitsu, from anything else. So that's a great thing to do. Find a job that allows you to get absorbed in the boredom. So I get to work with him, and then he develops, COPD, probably from his decades of smoking. And then on top of that, also being the mixer at the bakery, white lung, inhaling the flours and things like that, compounded. So he develops the COPD. Then he develops glossopharyngeal cancer. He's got cancer in his face, a little bit behind his eye, in his lung, things like that. And so, that was the first aside from my parents' divorce, that was the first shit my pants moments I think I've ever had in my life. Whenever he got diagnosed, and so fortunately, he had VA benefits, and I got to take care of him on this journey through cancer, and that's something I think that young men are missing too. The opportunity to care for something or someone beyond yourself that necessitates something more than the emotion of anger to sort of fuel you. Anger couldn't really fuel me through doing those things with my dad and for my dad. There's this nurturing part of me that was shriveled and atrophied that I didn't really even know about until I got to take him to all his chemotherapy appointments, take him to all his radiation appointments, to see him wither a bit. To see a person wither is something that will develop. I don't even think I can call it empathy. But to watch someone you love and care about wither in the hopes that they will get better, Jesus fuck, if that doesn't get you in touch with emotions that you don't normally play with, I highly recommend it to everybody. I do not wish cancer on anyone, but if you wish to develop emotions, care for something. Care for someone who is going through something, and you will develop a different set of skills that I think you need in the modern environment as far as being a man. So I think by way of taking care of my father through his first bout with cancer, we were getting ready to fight it a second time, and then he passed away. I developed so many different skills, ability to identify my emotions and to be in contact with this nurturing side of masculinity that I didn't know existed, that I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. And it was It was horrible to see him go through that. Still wouldn't trade it though. So I think we need to go through things that make us emotionally resilient, but those things are facilitated by being in contact with others. And that's where fucking the modern environment, where we are just, you can turn inwards. You can watch what you want to watch, do what you want to do. It's easy to not have this outward focus on other people and to be involved in their lives. And so the greatest gifts of my life, I think I've told you that before, but taking care of my father through his cancer, and by way of that springboarding me into fatherhood, now that I am a father, Jesus, man, I wouldn't have been half the dad I am now if I didn't have that experience of already nurturing and caring for something, for someone that I do. And then there are a whole bunch of other little micro lessons, I guess, that I've learned along the way of being a dad. But yeah, so that's my inner monologue as far as one of the stories that I tell myself, and how that story of could have been left in the Philippines, how that just sort of fills me with gratitude. And then also how caring for my father built this nurturing side of masculinity that I didn't know was there.
I love that story so much. And like, again, like you and this story, because this is one of the stories I think we told on the unaired podcast shit. I think about that often, about like, because I think you said like you're fun to like cry or some shit. Um, I'm not. Like, I straight up, I will actively fight crying. I straight up. Um, One of my exes, she's an ex for a lot of reasons, but um, she'd be like, "I just want to see you cry," and I was like, "Do you realize what you're saying? Like, do you realize that like you're actually saying I hope something so bad happens to you that you can't compensate? Like, that's what would make me cry." But she's an awful human being. But I digress. Um, I don't. I am one of those like Neanderthal kind of guys of like, yes, I'm a psychologist. Yes, I've told other people it's important to cry. Yes, I understand the catharsis. But at the same time, every ounce of my being fights me to cry. Like, even like and like, honestly, like the older I get, it gets harder, because it's like you have more lived experiences. So like sometimes like you'll be watching a movie, or there'll be like a really poignant moment in a show, and you're just like, oh man, like there's a lot of depth here that I didn't get when I watched it when I was like 22 or something. And then like something will start to happen, and then like my whole body's like, absolutely fucking not. And then it's just like dry it up. And I'm just like, why? Like, my fiance doesn't give a shit that I cry. Me crying doesn't do anything. I don't have this hang up about masculinity about it. I just, as a person, fucking hate crying. Um, but I think about you, and the fact you're just like, no man, like I'm up with my emotions. Like, I took care of my dad. Like, I'm every day grateful that I did, we did get moved to West Virginia and shit. Um, but I think about that a lot, because like, again, you're one of the inspirations for me, just on how to live well, and how to be a good man and shit. But like, I think about that because like, I intellectually, I understand the value of being more emotionally expressive, but there, I think part of it is like, so I don't tie my identity to it. And this is a whole other can of worms for another day, probably. But like with ADHD, so like I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid. I definitely still meet most of the markers for it. That's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but I think growing up, when you have strong reactions to things coupled with impulsivity, and when you are bigger than some of your peers, coupled with, for me, going through domestic violence and shit, and like seeing a very aggressive, violent, male figure, um, you kind of learn to basically be like, I'm a bull in a china shop. I have to be careful. I have to control myself almost to a rigid degree. I have to gray rock. I have to very much, kind of keep my shit within due bounds. Because I know what happens if I let it go. So you kind of go through life holding on to this leash of like, I can never let this go. Because every single time I have let this go, I have gone too far. I have gotten too loud, and now I've broken a social norm, or I've gotten too excited and I've irritated somebody, or I allowed my anger to come out and then I punched a hole or I did something else, right? So it's just like you get used to that way of being. So then it's like I can't cry because a tear turns into bawling, so I can't do that at all, right? And I told Rochelle, I told my fiance that one day, and she's like, "That sounds so sad that like you have to go through life like that." I was like, "Yeah, but that's the way I've found to function is like that's one reason like I gravitate toward like stoicism and Buddhism and shit is like it's about emotional control, not emotional suppression necessarily, although
Hmm.
sometimes I do err toward that, but just control and saying like, how will I choose to relate to this emotional state? What reaction do I want to have in this moment? And just, like Frankl or whatever talks about like the gap between like stimulus and response, like there's a gap here that like you have the freedom to choose what you do. Um, I definitely err on the side of that stuntedness and intellectualizing it rather than and like so yet another aside, another tangent when I'm talking about ADHD shit. So I took this public speaking training course. It's called Ultra Speaking. Love the guys. I'll have them on the show at some point. And basically it isn't about like the way they do in Ultra Speaking, it isn't about here's how to have a script and like be a great orator, so much as how can you bring more of yourself into every conversation you have so that it feels like a conversation, not a presentation. Basically, one of the exercises was basically you talk about whatever the fuck you're going to talk about, and then they put a number on the screen, and that number indicates the level of intensity or emotionality you have when you're presenting, and it goes from like 0 to 10, and it's constantly changing so that you have to like upshift or downshift throughout to teach you when to like be low and slow for impact, but then other times like be really up there to like get the audience heightened and shit, right?
Yeah.
So that you have some in a good way some emotional lability in your
Hmm.
delivery.
Hmm. Hmm.
I tried it and I was great at from like a 6 to an 8. I couldn't go to a 9 or 10. Um, and I could sometimes go to like a 0 or a 1. But one of the guys, Tristan was like, I forget his exact wordings, but he was basically like, this seems like something you do all the time in your life. You can't hit these emotional highs. And I was like, you motherfucker. Like I told him like, I was like, you motherfucker. I was like, why are you trying to turn this into a therapy session? He was like, why can't he was like, give me a 10. I was like, motherfucker, this is my 10. He was like, no, it isn't. I was like, my 10 is someone else's 7 because I can't actually hit that 9 or 10 on this scale because I've spent my entire life creating a ceiling at 7 or 8. He was like, "That's your fucking problem. You avoid these emotional highs or lows." I was like, "I could have fucking told you that at the beginning of this goddamn conversation." But the fact that this motherfucker who's not a psychologist was like, "Hey, buddy, seems like this is indicative of larger shit." I'm like, "You motherfucker." But like, how do you deal with all of the just emotional experiences of, dealing with your dad, but now being a parent, being a professional, being a husband, dealing with day-to-day stress, doing the creator thing. What is your relationship with your emotions and just the internal journey?
In some ways, it's similar to yours. I feel like now that you're talking about it, like I feel like there is a ceiling to my emotionality, and I wish I explored sort of the ranges like you were talking about in that ultra speaking course. The lows, being low, being intimate, whatever, and then being able to get really, really high. But honestly, thinking about it, I hate to bring this back to YouTube, but a couple of comments that I had early on, it's just like, hey man, you know what you're doing, you're really well spoken, you know what you're talking about, but where's the energy? I'm like, you know what, shit, man. Fuck, you're probably right. You're probably right about that. Like I have developed just like this very, and it comes back to the, just my love for philosophy, just like this terse, laconic, just flat affect, straight delivery. It's not even that it's functional. It's that I fucking just like, I feel that on the inside. I'm just like, yep, that is the way to be. And I'm still truly not talking about lowercase stoicism, just stiff upper lip bootstrap shit. Just like my relationship with my emotions, I truly embody that if something is out of my control, I need not worry about it. And having adopted that position for so long, the emotional waves, storm, current is this big now. And that's only after years and decades of understanding that to put your energy into things that are outside of your control, including emotions that arise in you, fuck, that's a losing battle 10 out of 10 times. And so I don't think that the fact that I don't get in contact with certain emotions as frequently as some individuals is necessarily a negative thing. It's that my relationship with my emotions is that I don't allow them to dictate what I ought to. And then also whenever sort of some of these more negatively valenced emotions, sadness, anxiety, worry, regret, shame, guilt, I have developed a default, again, heuristics, good heuristics to develop. Whenever I feel those emotions, I turn into them. That is my rule. Having rules, like, your rule about saying, I have a default no, right? That's the default. Allows me 24 hours. That's what I tell everybody. With my emotions, I have this default where I turn into anxiety, turn towards sadness. And with sadness, I mean, that could be as simple as, I think about my dad, start feeling these emotions. And as opposed to flipping on a podcast, doing something else, motherfucker, I will blast an Aerosmith song that allows me to not only ride that wave, but fucking crank up the amplitude on it and just allow me to feel it, because our emotions are, they're evolutionary signals. They're a signal that we ought do something, and it's a signal that should be paid attention to, taken seriously, but not necessarily listened to as a cold hard fact, right? Your emotions aren't facts. They are signals that should be taken seriously, in my opinion. And so I think a way that I experience my emotions is just whatever it is, the avoidance of that emotion is what I will not do. I allow myself to turn into it and begin becoming very introspective. And so the sort of peaks in my emotions naturally don't get as high because they're not as scary to me anymore. They don't spin out of control. I don't continue to avoid them. So honestly, man, my emotional highs and lows aren't that high and aren't that low because I've constantly turned into them. I don't know if that's necessarily the best answer to it, but I would say for any young man out there, getting curious about your emotions, allowing yourself to turn into those emotions and feel it fully, and understand that just because you are feeling an emotion fully, that does not dictate what you need to do next. That was one lesson in life that I learned way back that I am grateful for. Your emotions don't dictate your actions, but they are good signals.
So one thing with shit like SSRIs and shit, and at this point you are more up to date than I am because I left therapy a handful of years ago. Um, with SSRIs and a lot of antidepressants, functionally they act as a compressor, right? So with like sound and music and shit, like you put like compression onto like an audio file, like an audio waveform, so you tamp down the highs but raise the ceiling from the lows, and you're just sort of in this like mid band.
Yep.
A lot of antidepressants, that's functionally what they end up doing is like, yeah, you're not as depressed because it raises that floor, so you don't have the same lows. But what it often does for people is it also reduces the highs. So you just sort of exist in this mid band. I think a lot of us have created our own emotional compressor
Mhm. Mhm.
just without, pharmacology, psychopharmacology. So like what again, when I did ultra speaking and Tristan and I were talking and shit, and I was like, not that I didn't know it, but because I thought I had a good enough handle over it that like it wasn't noticeable. But I mean, and again, like Tristan is a fucking pro with this shit. But like the fact that Tristan was like, let me just fucking poke this very specific thing. I was like, it got me thinking of like, am I so afraid of experiencing lows that I prevent myself from experiencing highs? Am I fully living to the fullest I am capable of? Or am I simply existing within a narrow band of emotional, not awareness, but emotional experience and emotional resonance? Like, am I actually allowing myself to feel all the things? And am I fully present? Because, like for example, I don't celebrate a whole lot of things
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
for a couple reasons. One, one is definitely from almost like a place of like not insecurity, but it's definitely compensatory of like, don't get your hopes up
Mm.
or like, growing up poor, I learned don't ask for a lot of things. Like, I mean, kids ask for shit regardless, but like once I like realized like, oh fuck, we're poor, like it was just like, don't ask for things because that places the burden on your parents. So they're going to feel guilty if they can't get it for you, but then they're going to break their backs to try to get it for you. I don't want to be a burden. And it's like, oh, this thing might happen, but it might not. You're better off to not get your hopes up, right? Um, or it's just other things you want. It's like that is out of your control. You control how much you hang your hopes on it, right? And then with Buddhism, right? Like desire is the root of all suffering, right? When you want something and you don't get it, right? Or you can't have it. Again, Stoicism, Buddhism. So like I don't when I don't look forward to things very often. I don't like allow myself to get excited for it. But the issue is like a lot of times it's the anticipation that is more activating than the actual thing happening, right? It's it's the anticipation of like, oh, this thing is going to happen. It could happen. Tomorrow's the day. It's that excitement, that anticipatory excitement that is part of the experience of the thing. And then the thing is like the payoff, right? So foreplay, climax kind of shit. Don't just want to go in raw dog on it. Um, but if you don't allow yourself to engage with that anticipatory phase, the payoff isn't as much of a payoff because it didn't have that on ramp to it. But that coupled with the fact like, okay, next, like, okay, I did it, the thing happened, cool. I have to move on to the next. And part of it is like the goalpost is always moving, but it's also a like, don't rest on your laurels. This could go away tomorrow, moving on. And it's just like, do I ever allow myself to just enjoy things fully? Or am I so um preoccupied with the possibility that it might not work out? So I don't want to get my hopes up. And then I go up high, which means I drop down super low. Isn't it better to just have this emotional compressor on? And like I've thought about that since, and that was like, I don't know, like a year ago. Um, and I have definitely put an effort to allow myself to feel more things and deal with the consequences of it. But my default is still that emotional like compression. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's a lot of. I'm going to generalize here. I think that's a lot of dudes' default, just that emotional compression. Dude, I was sitting here like, if I wasn't actually nodding in my mind, I was like, yep, maybe for different reasons, but that emotional compression. And like, I think you were also pointing to like sort of these internal drives. Again, what it is to be a man. I think some of these things are possibly unconscious, like, hunger, sleep, sex, right? Drives, fucking drives mediated by testosterone and other hormones, but still drives, most of which are just running in the background, right? I think there's also this, status drive, this drive to move forward, to progress. Maybe that's a better verbiage. Progression. Ooh, fuck me, man. Progression. I have this internal thing that says, is that a process that can be iterated? Awesome. I'm going to keep refining it. Whatever the fuck that may be. I may set, time point, put on a natural bodybuilding show and promote it, enjoy it all the way up until that point, I suppose. But the second that that is over, I'm already thinking about the show next year. Fuck, did I actually enjoy that? Did I enjoy the lead up to it? Why is it that I automatically default to like, all right, well, this happened, this could have been better. Could have did this here. Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate you helping. And then, you know what? We could have did this. And then next year, I'm going to go get a storage unit. Yada, yada, yada. I think it goes, I don't know if you said this. You said between stimulus and response, there's a space. I want to introduce another quote. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will drive you and you will call it fate. And fuck, man. Until we absolutely make that unconscious drive, because I think it's in a lot of us, like as men, to not be in the moment and enjoy what's going on, but to either plan for the worst or to seek higher ground is also another sort of unconscious internal drive, planning for the worst, seeking more, moving forward. And I think it pulls us out of, the present moment. And I think that's that's the one thing we need to optimize more for. Being present, being where you are, being where your feet are. So no, I definitely resonate with everything you said, maybe for slightly different reasons, but like there are some times that I am not present because I'm already thinking about the next thing. And so that definitely resonates.
So you said your reasons are slightly different than mine. What are yours?
My reasons for
The emotional compression.
It's a multi-factor answer. I think also as dudes, we need to acknowledge the role of testosterone in sort of, sex drive and then also emotional ability. Like if you have not dieted for a bodybuilding show and you decide to enter into a bodybuilding show and you are a natural bodybuilder, lots of caveats there. If you get lean enough at a certain point, you will probably go hypogonadal and you will feel what it is like to not have the normal range of testosterone that your average male will have, and you will experience quite a bit more emotional lability. Hey, because testosterone is going to constrain some of that range there and make it a little bit easier to keep your sort of compressed range, as you were talking about. And so there's that. But I think for me, that compressed range is a byproduct of testosterone, philosophical underpinnings, and then my desire to only play in playgrounds or play in games that I can iterate from. YouTube's an iterative game. Promoting a bodybuilding show is an iterative game. Bodybuilding itself is an iterative game. The biggest mistake I made in my first bodybuilding show was not planning for 3 or 4 bodybuilding shows that year. By putting all my eggs into one basket, I was unable to iterate from that. And that is the lesson I took from that first bodybuilding show. You don't plan for a show, you plan for a season. That turns that one thing where you put all your hopes and dreams into something that you can iterate off of. So I think for me, having this constrained range of emotionality is a byproduct of me only playing in playgrounds where it's not black and white, it's not off and on. I no longer have these negative emotions associated with failure because failure is a springboard to the next thing. So that's great. And it keeps this sort of compressed range for me emotionally, but that also means that I'm always thinking about the next thing. Always thinking about the next show, next episode on YouTube, next research this, next that, next. And I will say the downside of that is, how present am I in any given moment? So I would say that's mostly, so I guess my compressed emotionality is a byproduct. That make any sense?
For sure. And I think that the balance of striving to be better in the future, but being present and being enough now is a really, really hard thing for high achievers to figure out.
Mm.
Because the reality is like you never reach your potential because the more capable you become, the more potential you have. Right. So like it actually is a moving target. It's like mastery. You don't achieve mastery. Like I deeply believe mastery is impossible to achieve because the way I personally define mastery is there's nowhere else to go. There's no improvement left. You have mastered the thing. You can do all things, you know all things within this. That's probably way too broad or grand of a definition of mastery. But the pursuit of mastery will make you infinitely better, right? It's similar to perfection. You never achieve perfection, but striving for perfection will make you significantly better as long as you recognize the improvement comes from the chase, not the actual achievement. Like you will never be perfect, right? Even like with
Happiness in
bodybuilding.
pursuit. Yeah.
Exactly. But even like with bodybuilding, there's really no such thing as like the perfect physique in that, like there are judges' criteria, right? But you could always be maybe a little bit leaner, or your own frame could be different. You can't affect your frame or your genetics, right? Like some people
Hmm.
naturally have
Hmm.
like bigger calves or bigger forearms or whatever, right? There are certain things that even the person who everybody who's won any bodybuilding competition in 30 years, those people are going to look really different, right? Because the meta changes or techniques change or what people look for changes. Like there's no perfect body, perfect physique, perfect anything. So like a big thing that I do like with the show, with the other stuff that I do is like how can you kind of get closer to reaching your potential, right? What does it mean to
Mm.
do that?
Mhm.
And I definitely think it is worth reaching toward your potential. But some of the people I work with, like for coaching and things, it's like I've built a 10, 30, $50 million business. I've done this, I've done that. I'm nowhere near reaching my potential, right? Because it's like, well, once you made $10,000, you were then more capable of making even more. Then you hit 100 million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever, a billion. And that's obviously one metric. You never reach it because the more capable you become, the more capable you become. So I think that like those of us who see the potential we have are never satisfied with where we're at because we know how much more capable we are. And we don't want to waste the time we have. We don't want to waste our potential. So if I'm not striving toward my potential, I'm wasting it. And there's this really fine line, this fine balance of I recognize I'm not as good as I could be, but and I am actively working to be better and strive. But I am also deeply grateful for what I currently have and how far I've already come. And I am working to be present in the moment because what's the point? That's a question I ask all the time. It's like, what's the point? So like for me, I work from home. I have, this office upstairs, and then it's really, really easy for me to work all day and then go downstairs, make dinner, cook, train, whatever the evening looks like. And then we sit down on the couch and then I pull up my laptop and I'm like, oh, I'll work a little bit more. And it's like, what's the point? What's the point of working if it takes me away from the people I want to provide a good life for? If it takes me away from the people who make life worth living, what's the fucking point of doing all this? How do you navigate that tension?
Fuck, man, there's no tension. Sorry. No, that's not a good answer. No, it's just because it's just like my time in the morning. It's blocked off and protected. Block off and protect your time. Fuck, man. We're trying to balance being present. We're trying to balance You're talking about family. Could work a little bit more, could do a little bit more research, could find another research paper, could read another book. Oh shit, there's my Amazon cart. There's this, there's that. And for being in a world that vies for our attention as much as this fucking world does, and it's crazy to think that it's going to get even worse in the future. You have to find a way to block off and protect your time. And for me, the easiest way to do that is to have defaults in place that allow you to do that. So it's sort of like environmental control, like we were talking about with dieting. Like the easiest way to engage in a particular diet isn't, it could be prep, it could be this, could be that, but it's also keep the shit out of your house that you don't want in your house, that give you problems, that give you issues. Similarly, I know that if I have my phone with me at family time, I'm not going to be a present dad. So at 6 o'clock, I put my phone away, and then I have the evening until we go to bed. And then I don't have to think about being present. It's a default, man. I give myself as many defaults as possible because I have empathy for myself as this evolved creature who is enticed by things that give me a dopamine rush and acutely are satiating, but in the long term provide nothing that I want, nothing that is aligned with my values. So honestly, man, I think, again, this is me and not my biases, but these are the things that I've benefited from, but having defaults for the evening time so that there is no tension between what you acutely want versus what you want in the long term. That's the most beneficial thing that I think that I have done to help protect the most important things, which is, time with my boys, time with my wife. Am I perfect at it? No. Sometimes I have my phone. Sometimes I have headphones in or something like that, and I go, shit, and then I got to put my phone away. But I think having ways to protect that time is something that we all need to learn how to do. How are you structuring your environment in such a way that it makes it easier for you to default to the most important things?
So then if somebody's listening, they're like, okay, Josh, they're, Dr. Williams, that sounds great. How do I start that?
How do you start? Okay, well, find the things that are taking up your bandwidth. First, let's be real here. Start with your phone. Look at how much screen time you got going on that bitch. I know it's a lot. I know you're looking at this camera and it's a lot. You might not have checked, but you can check. And then set limits for yourself. It's just like dieting or training. If you want to be a more present person, if you want to be a more present father, if you want to be a more present husband, and you know what times you have to spend with your family, find a time to get your phone out of the room. For me, it's 6 o'clock. Between 6 and 8, my boys go to bed at around 8. Therefore, I go to bed a little around 8. And so I've already developed sort of that schedule, and I get 2 solid hours. For you, if you don't have any children, you're just thinking about, a significant other or a spouse, you all go to bed around 10. You want to protect some time from 8 to 10. Put your phone on the charger. Get it away from you. Set up turn off notifications. That's something that I do. The awesome updates to iPhones. Like I hear nothing after 6 o'clock. It's nothing. I have to make a conscious effort to go back to my phone to see any type of signaling, because that's another way that that devices pull our attention, is through these fucking signals that we get. Jesus, man. You got to find a way to shut those off. So shut off all the signals, get it out of your environment. But first, be something that you go back to a lot, or at least in the past, Corey, being intentional. What is it you want? You want more time with your spouse or your children. Pick some time. Doesn't have to be 2 hours. It could be an hour, but be intentional about it. Say, at this time, I am with my family. I am with my spouse or significant other. And then do the things in your environment that allow you to default to that immediately. So for the person listening to this, if you just want to start with, half hour, an hour a day, pick that time. Whatever that time is, you know your schedule better than I do. Find the time, schedule it, pick a spot for your phone, get the notifications off. And then also, I only know these things, my wife and my kids, are important to me because I've explicitly outlined my values. if you don't know what your core values are as a human, as an individual, it's going to be hard to figure out what to protect. Like, you need to know those sort of up front. I think we have these natural instincts to move towards things like family, but if you haven't taken your time to just figure out what your own personal values are, that's probably step number one. Think about the people you admire. Think about characters in works of fiction that you admire. Think about superheroes. Think about this. Think about that. Think about the deeper reasons why you admire these figures, and just make explicit what your values are, because they orient you. You live them, and then you can begin to develop these goals and habits around them. And that's why I like values work, because they're this orienting sort of function, and they allow you to orient yourself in any given moment. So define your values. Those will help you figure out what's the most important thing, and then you can start allocating your time accordingly.
I love that. I have so many more questions, but we're already at pushing 2 hours. Um, one quick piece I'll add to that. So there are these
Please.
things called behavioral nudges. All a behavioral nudge is something that nudges you to engage in a certain behavior. So just having your phone in your peripheral nudges you to check it. So when we're talking about defaults and environmental design, you can really and values work. It's like, okay, what behaviors do I want to engage in throughout the day? What nudges can I put in place that facilitate that? But also, what things can I remove
Yep.
to avoid the wrong nudges in the wrong direction, right? Um, so that's another piece for all that. Where can people find you?
Two places. YouTube. Just look up Dr. Josh Williams. So I'm Dr. Josh Williams on YouTube. You can find me for all bodybuilding psychology related things. On YouTube, I do teach some mental skills as it relates to general fitness and dieting and nutrition, and developing the habits and systems, and a lot of things we talked about today. So that's a good spot for bodybuilders, general fitness enthusiasts, and people interested in the more psychological aspect of training and nutrition. So that's a great spot to find me. I would go there first. And then on Instagram, I am at Strength Ritual, just because I just haven't changed it to at Dr. Josh Williams. So you can find me on Instagram at Strength Ritual, but really check out the YouTube. Also, again, I do, if you are an individual who really enjoys bodybuilding, the Raw Intensity training application from Cliff Wilson, doing a mental rep series on there where I help bodybuilders, again, back to what we were talking about, identify some of these emotions that may come up during contest preparation and make it difficult to complete your contest preparation. So you can find me there. And if anything, just connect with me on any one of those platforms. And I'd love to, just help any individual who is struggling in fitness, in bodybuilding, in psychology, whatever, and anything men and masculinity related. Like I said, it's a unique interest of ours. Again, and you brought up an important point. Like, there needs to be it's funny, it's going around now, there needs to be a Joe Rogan of the left. Well, there needs to be an Andrew Tate of the, just whatever the fuck not Andrew Tate is. Like, that's what we're searching for in the sort of men and masculinity space. It's the adjacent to the Joe Rogan of the left. There needs to be an sort of anti-Andrew Tate.
Agreed. Yeah, and I'll have links for everything in the show notes and shit. We didn't even get to like performance psychology, evolutionary psychology. So we definitely I'll have to have you back on for all that.
My
But dude,
guy.
this was fucking great. Hope you all enjoyed listening. Also, one more thing before you go. If you enjoyed this episode, there are two things you can do to share the wealth. One, send this episode to someone who needs to hear this message and tell them why it was so impactful for you. Two, take like literally 3 seconds to either like or leave a hopefully 5-star review, but be honest, because there's a lot of fluff and bullshit out there, and people are looking for content that's actually valuable. So a little social proof from people like you giving the show a good review goes a long way. Thanks for listening/watching, and until next time, take it easy.